I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. Offering spiritual care to the terminally ill.
Presence, to be in the presence of what I think is a very holy time.
When in Rome, study for the priesthood.
We need to understand the historical nature of the church and really see it tangibly.
And 3 men answering the call in Brooklyn.
It is God who is doing the work. He's calling us and expects us to cooperate.
Good evening. Many agree that healthcare in this country is in critical condition. As Washington debates the best treatment for that, the Catholic Health Association says that attention needs to be paid to pain management, along with the psychological, social, and spiritual needs of patients with serious illness.
Hospital chaplains see these patients up close each and every day. We want to introduce you now to 3 people caring for the spiritual needs of terminally ill patients right here in New York City.
My name is Jane Mather, and my story starts from the time I was very young and lost a younger brother to childhood illness. I think because I grew up with the evidence very up close and personal of death in my family, I've never been afraid of it. I saw from the time I was little that the survivors survive, and that the people who die are still so much a part of the fabric of what's left behind, that it's not just, they don't just disappear, they're still there.
A typical day as Director of Chaplaincy Services starts between 6:30 and 7 a.m. Jane receives referrals from nurses, social workers, and doctors for sick and dying patients and their families. We asked Jane about her journey to Sloan.
What brought me to Memorial Sloan Kettering was the interest that I had in cancer care. Their inclusion of pastoral care was so profoundly exciting to me because pastoral care is often not recognized as important. Many times sat at the bedside of a dying patient and just been there and held the hand. I think of myself as an usher. We usher people from this world into the next, and that takes tremendous patience and slowing down and not having any other agenda but just the presence, to be in the presence of what I think is a very holy time.
The reward looks like the reality of grace. It's the grace or the blessing of the moment where you see the patient is at peace. And to me, the reward is my own peace in knowing that I did what I feel God has called me to do. Maybe there is the presence of cancer of the bone, but there's healing in knowing that people care.
Sister Margaret Ottinger is Director of Pastoral Care at Hospital for Special Surgery. She, like Jane Mather, heads a team of several chaplains who are specially trained in end-of-life practices.
We have our own nurses' syllabus. We have our own chaplains' traditions of knowing what to do, or what traditions are a part of Hinduism, of Muslims, of Roman Catholics, of Protestants, when they are sick, when they are injured, when they are dying.
Lutheran Reverend George Hanzo has been a chaplain for 25 years. He now heads healthcare chaplaincy in New York City.
I worked in memorial pediatrics for almost 25 years. Worked with families who children were diagnosed with cancer, died from cancer, relapsed with cancer. But the challenge, I think, is the focus and the presence that you have to do this job well. The intensity of the contact has to be total. It's about reducing suffering, and that's a noble calling, I think. And I feel blessed to be lucky enough to have dropped into a place where I can help people suffer less.
For those who have a sort of faith that said, well, if I say my prayers, I give money to church and to charity, that somehow God will protect me from this, and then they find themselves in the midst of a cancer diagnosis and they think, gosh, I did everything right, how did this happen? The rewards are wonderful. Starting with restoring your faith in humanity. We see people at their most fundamentally human come into the hospital. We take away all the props and costumes that make us who we are out in the world and are left with raw humanity here. The gift that we are given of the people that we love and are connected to and whose lives we're woven together with. Those bonds never break. They stretch and they change, but they don't break. And just as we have to let go from this side, there are people, we're told in our faith that there are those on the other side who are welcoming with joy and singing and celebration, saying, we're so glad you're here. So being able to say those things in a gentle way, depending on the family, is, I think, part of what we're there for. It's to identify this as sacred time, but also joyful that we had the time and could share in the love of this person.
Well, 3 people there doing some very important and what can be at times emotionally draining work. Sure. Very, very admirable. Well, stay with us because when Currents returns, we'll have the day's headlines.
And American seminarians get a taste of Rome.
The food has just been very good. We've had pasta constantly.
Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Later on in the show, we'll meet the 3 men from the Brooklyn Diocese who will be ordained tomorrow. They'll tell the stories about what brought them to the priesthood. You don't want to miss that. But first, we have the day's headlines. Go forward. That's the message from former British Prime Minister Tony Blair to Catholic leaders in the U.S. Speaking in Philadelphia, Blair said the church needs to, quote, demonstrate God's love and compassion and to be of service to others.
Archbishop Timothy Dolan is going forward to Rome. He is one of 5 archbishops headed to the Vatican to receive their special pallia from Pope Benedict. About 250 men and women from the U.S. are accompanying the archbishops on their trip. The heads of the 5 archdioceses will spend a week in Rome. Now, Archbishop Dolan already has 1 pallium from his time as head of the Archdiocese of Milwaukee.
And if you can't make it to the Vatican, one archdiocese is tracking their new leader's whereabouts on the internet. The Archdiocese of Detroit has started a blog to cover Archbishop Alan Vigneron's reception of his pallium. Among those who've contributed to the blog so far, a prominent laywoman, the Archbishop Vigneron's nephews, and the Archbishop himself. We've talked briefly about the pallium over the last few days, and on Monday, the day each Archbishop will receive the pallia, we'll have on a church historian who will talk about the meaning of this special garment.
Now, while the archbishops are spending a week in Rome, others are spending even more time there. U.S. dioceses send their seminarians there to give them a taste of the church's origins, up close and personal, as we hear from Rome Reports.
It's hard to miss the breadth of Catholicism that permeates the city of Rome. And if you're a seminarian, it's hard to think of a better place to study than the heart of the church itself. Studying in Rome is just what this group of young seminarians from around the United States came to do in the Eternal City.
Every seminarian should come to Rome at least once.
Father Eric Nielsen is the director of the Rome Experience, a program that gives 18 seminarians from various parts of the U.S. the chance to take classes in Rome for 6 weeks.
Because you do need to see the universality of the church. You need to see the beauty of the church that exists here in Rome. You need to understand the historical nature of the church and really see it tangibly, to touch the history of the church.
I'm not just a Catholic, I'm a Roman Catholic. And understanding the importance of that has given me confidence going back.
Ryan O'Neill is 4.5 weeks into his own Rome experience. He says being here has played an important role in the shaping of his vocation.
Seeing the importance of the Latin heritage, the language, the culture, and not just that, but the beauty and the art and the history of what Rome is and how that can be a unifying aspect and a culturally enriching aspect. As a Catholic, I always just only knew the parish or the diocese that I lived in.
While the young men spend most of their time in the classroom, they've also put aside time to visit famous catacombs and churches. And they've also attended the Pope's general audience. And although their 6 weeks have been mainly concerned with their formation, when in Rome, they haven't resisted doing as the Romans do.
The food has just been very good. We've had pasta constantly, and that hasn't been a problem for me.
This group of seminarians is a real melting pot. The students have come from Colorado, Wisconsin, and Tennessee to share a unique experience in a very special place.
Now, while the seminarians that you just met come from across the U.S., up next, we'll meet their counterparts from a little closer to home.
On the eve of ordination, 3 soon-to-be priests reflect.
The Lord has given me a deep sense of peace in responding to His call to serve His people here in the diocese.
Well, tomorrow is one of the most important days for the Brooklyn Diocese. 3 men will be ordained into the priesthood at St. James Cathedral.
Well, we recently had a chance to speak with these men as they gathered at Holy Family Parish in Flushing. Tonight, these 3 are our eyewitnesses. We started by asking each of them to sum up their vocations in one word.
Joyful. My name is Robert Mucci, and I'm going to be ordained the 27th of June. And I feel incredibly joyful now. As an older seminarian, it's taken me a long time to get to this point. God has been very patient in working with me, molding me, shaping me over these many years. And as ordination approaches, I'm eagerly anticipating that.
Peace. My name is Daniel Ciampoli, and I will be ordained a priest on June 27th here in Brooklyn. And it's been a beautiful journey towards the priesthood for me over these last years. If there's one word to describe my journey, it's been that the Lord has given me a deep sense of peace in responding to His call to serve His people here in the diocese.
God bless. My name is Tomasz Szczepańczyk, and I am a seminarian preparing for the ordination to the Holy Priesthood for the Diocese of Brooklyn in just a few days' time. Priesthood, as John Paul II taught us, is a great gift, an equally great mystery. And I am very grateful to God, very excited about the ordination to the Holy Priesthood.
Well, when I was about 7 years old, I had just received my first Holy Communion, and I remember having a very, very strong sense of wanting to be a priest. And I remember I had my missal that my mother had given me for my communion, and I remember praying from it every day.
I can remember feeling called by the Lord, even growing up, and particularly had a close experience of God while on retreat at Zavarian High School. But I think I was confused. First of all, it was during the years, the 60s, early 70s, when there were more people leaving the priesthood, and I was never really encouraged or asked by anyone about it. And so, since they tell you that the priesthood isn't something that you choose but you're called to, I never felt comfortable talking about it with anyone. So eventually, after high school, I went on to Dartmouth College, started my career, and my career just took off. But the feelings never went away.
I grew up in Poland and learned the faith and learned to love the faith in Poland in the communist times when faith and living the faith took courage. And then I emigrated to the States, and for many years I worked as a teacher, which was a work I loved, both in public and private schools, both in the States and international schools in Europe. And finally, the Lord pulled me by the ears and just told me, well, it's time, because it might be too late.
One of the things I'm most anxious about is perhaps the fact that I look so young. People often ask me how old I am, and my response is always, well, I'm young, but I look younger than I am. I'm 26 years old. And, you know, with that comes certain biases perhaps on people's parts, but that's one of my fears, is that perhaps I look too young for the job.
There are many anxieties throughout the process of formation and preparation to the priesthood. I think the most prominent one is perhaps the anxiety over my own sense of worthiness. No man is worthy to be a priest. The call is purely God's grace. It is God who is doing the work. He's calling us and expects us to cooperate. So my anxiousness is sometimes provoked by the sense of my inadequate cooperation with grace.
Well, I guess my biggest concern is I know I'm not naturally an outgoing person, and you know, in the priesthood, so much of the priesthood is meeting new people and doing different things, but I'm sure God will provide whatever I need to get the job done.
Brooklyn is indeed special in many ways. It's a totally urban diocese. It's extremely diverse. It's, in a way, the whole world in a nutshell here. Everyone is here, every language. So this is going to be a fascinating challenge to serve the people of Brooklyn. But I also know, having lived in Brooklyn and taught in Brooklyn schools for a while, that there are great people of faith here. People who need the church, who are looking forward to having good priests serve them.
For anyone considering the priesthood, I would certainly recommend to listen to perhaps the quiet of their heart. The world is a very loud place, and we all need to take time for prayer and to really listen, try and listen to those deeper callings of our heart. Also the importance of perhaps spending time with priests that they might know, spending time around their parish, trying to get involved in their parish. But the most important thing would be to try and pay attention to perhaps that deep sense of quiet and peace that they might find in their heart surrounding what they might think is a call.
Well, with the grace of God, I hope to be a good and holy priest, one who lays down his life and puts himself at the service of others, puts the needs of the people that I'm called to serve first, to be Christ to them, to give them whatever they need and to lead them closer to the Lord and to their ultimate salvation.
Deacons Robert Mucci, Daniel Ciampoli, and Thomas Shapanchik there. Getting ready for a big day. They'll be ordained tomorrow at St. James Cathedral. Well, on Monday's show, we'll have complete coverage of that Mass.
Stay tuned. There's more current straight ahead.
Well, welcome back to Currents here for the Friday edition. And joining us now for a little sit down, our own Natalia Ortiz.
Hello. Hello there.
So nice to see you in here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Out in the field, always getting your stories.
Always out in the field. Tough job.
I know, but it's nice to have you indoors for once, in the great indoors, here talking to us. Just going to kind of, you know, sit down, chat, wrap up the week. And,
that's right.
And all that. And what a week it's been. I mean, you know, we've had... first, earlier in the week, Ed McMahon passed away.
Yes.
Ed McMahon, a Catholic, by the way. Also, Farrah Fawcett, who was Catholic as well. Now, Michael Jackson has passed away just yesterday. So it's been a big week as far as celebrity deaths have gone.
A lot of mourning going on. I think, you know, friends and family of everyone are certainly feeling for each of those entertainers because they did bring so much light to so many people for so long.
That's right. I mean, I think all of us at one point or another, whatever age range it was, we were all, I think, affected or impacted by either the music or the entertainment of all of these people. Right. So, you know, no matter what.
And a lot of people right here in Brooklyn obviously are very entertained and helped out by some of the people that you profiled this week. Tell us a little bit more about the story that we saw the other day in the food pantry, how you kind of got to that story.
That was a great story because I actually went out on the field thinking, okay, we're going to cover Matthew 25, which was a Catholic Charities project, some funding that was being given to these food pantries. And when I arrived at the food pantry, I realized, because the priest actually pointed out to me, well, as you can see, all the volunteers here are women, and this would not be possible without these women. And I thought, I stepped back for a second, I thought, whoa, this is another story. So I went on and actually wrote my Matthew 25 story, because that was relevant to that week. Press conference for Matthew 25 had been held earlier.
Right.
But then I came back and told my news director, I want to write another story with the same footage. I asked more questions, and I saved them so we can do another story and just talk about why it is that all these women, particularly, are helping out in this food pantry.
Right.
Two for the price of one.
And if I remember, in the piece, it was basically that the father was saying that, you know, do they get enough credit? And he's like, no, they don't,
Right.
and perhaps they never will, but we really do need to sing their praises. So more props to you ladies tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a woman, of course, you know, you always think, wow, okay, I guess, you know, men are always out there and they're more vocal perhaps in other areas of leadership, or they're noticed, you know, in business, in this kind of area. But certainly, and it's not to say that men aren't out there helping the poor as well, because I'm sure that they are. But for whatever reason, in this parish, in this food pantry, it's run by women.
It was all the women that were doing stuff.
Also wanted to get your sort of insight on the other piece that you did earlier in the week. The dancing, the sort of the dance class. That was cool.
Oh, it was great.
I saw you.
I know, that was. That's
I
a
saw
lot
you
of fun.
dancing with more than one guy.
That's
right.
I had to learn the rumba for a Dancing with the Stars competition once, and I know that's hard. I mean, so that kind of dancing is tough.
Yeah. Well, you know, I love it. I'm a dancer by nature. I used to dance when I was younger, and so it wasn't difficult for me, but what was very funny was that it was hard for me to report and dance at the same time.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
saw that was so cool. I was like, you know, some reporters will do a stand-up. You know, if you don't know the lingo, it's where you stand up and you know, in the middle of your report, you stand up and you tell kind of what's going on or something. So I loved what you did with the thing, and they would turn you, and then you'd say another phrase, and then they'd turn you to say another phrase.
Nice.
That was awesome.
That was creative.
And actually, if you notice in the stand-up, which I then coined as my dance-up, my stand-up,
nice.
I actually used one of the earlier takes, because I, of course, being a perfectionist, and I say this on the blog as well, by the way, for those of you who aren't checking it, definitely go in, because I've got a lot of behind-the-scenes info on the stories. But it was basically about how I kept on messing up my line, you know, every time, because I was dancing at the same time.
Yeah, it's hard to
keep
focused.
So I kept on doing it until I got it perfect. And then once I got it perfect, I thought, okay, that's it.
Right.
And my editor producer said to me, no. I think we should use
again.
the other one that, you know, it's just so much more natural. Yeah, you fumbled up a little bit, you started laughing at the end, but that's you.
You're having fun. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so we used that one, and I think that was a really good call.
And it makes you really respect people like on Broadway too, who
Oh,
can
yeah.
do it,
Know
who
what
can
they're
sing and
doing.
dance. Especially
Right.
for someone like me, who I just, you know, I have two left feet basically when it comes to dancing. I do. I can't. You know.
Yeah.
I could use some lessons with the cha-cha.
Yeah.
And, you know, all that.
It's all a good day's work, I guess it is. And another good thing that happened this week, of course, is that we actually had our unveiling of our new studio. So a lot of people out in the public came, and the Monsignor, the Archbishop, and everyone really came out to support us. Lots of good food that we partook in, and we enjoyed it very much. So thanks for all of you for coming.
We had way too much of the food. So well, that's all for this edition of Currents. On tonight's show, of course, we met with 3 men who will be ordained to the priesthood for the Brooklyn Diocese. The Net will have live coverage of the ordination Mass on Saturday morning starting at 11 a.m. We'll also have a complete wrap-up on Monday's edition of Currents.
And remember, you can always watch us online at netny.net. And we'd like to hear from you. Send us an email. Drop us a line at currentsny.net. And thank you so much for watching this edition of Currents. For Matt McClure and Natalia Ortiz, I'm Francesca Maxime. Have a great weekend.